Batard Show podcast, the fastest Dan Le Batard fan YouTube channel. That's right, folks. We are growing, and last time you heard us, we had just a fascinating series of 8 minutes or so on intermittent fasting, and we loved it so much that we thought, hey, why not try out some intermittent podcasting, right? See what happens if we're off for like a couple weeks, huh? Maybe when we come back, we'll only have one guy doing it, right? Huh? Go lean on the podcast. Maybe that'll grow our listeners, right? But last time you heard us in October, we were asking for our listeners the 100 challenge, and you guys have risen to the challenge. We're at 73 subscribers, so we didn't quite hit the 100 there, but that's growth of 20 listeners there. I'll take that, but we are above 100 reviews as a podcast. So thank you very much for those of you who have been reviewing, subscribing, and go ahead, like, subscribe, continue to do that. Well, as you guys have seen, I am here, Nathan Minnema, flying solo tonight. Ty is slammed with Sheets and Giggles trying to get you to buy that mattress there, folks. So if you could do that and he could get his life back, he'd really appreciate it. Brian, he's out with that RSV, folks. He's got it bad. So that leaves me stepping up. And what I'm going to try to do for you folks today is I'm going to parody my own radio hour of the Le Batard Show. That's right, folks. I'm going to have some music rejoins. I'm not going to create my own fan Le Batard rejoins. Maybe we'll do that in the future if we do something like this again, but I'm going to try to have 4 or 5 segments here for you. Keep it short and keep it kind of like the show. Have a little Sports Center updates and some and finalies for you. So that's what we've got on tap. But first, an announcement. And this is something that I've been thinking about for a little bit and didn't know if I could announce it, right? I'm a co-host of the Fan Le Batard Show podcast. And folks, your boy, Nathan, I have another podcast right now that in my podcast rankings has usurped the Dan Le Batard Show. That's right, folks. Now, I don't feel too bad about it. I feel like I can announce this because it is a Meadowlark media podcast, but I was listening to it recently and I realized, you know what? This is right now the podcast that I get the most enjoyment from, right? I mean, overall, it's still the Le Batard Show where I get the most enjoyment overall because it's every single day. And, you know, they just keep cranking out great episodes. But I've got to adjust my top 5, folks. So without further ado, here is Nathan Minnema's top 5 Meadowlark podcasts, or just podcasts in general, but they all happen to be Meadowlark. You know how I be. Number 5, Basketball Illuminati. This one, I was very excited when they announced it. Love Amin and love that we're going to get him weekly, and the podcast has lived up to my expectations. Just so incredibly unique podcast in terms of just how they discuss basketball, and yet even though it kind of has a conspiracy, like joking premise, I still feel like I'm getting like incredible insight on the NBA and that they're actually bringing me the truth. They've opened up my third eye. I remember, like, I don't know, it was a couple months ago where I was listening. I was like, you know what? This isn't just a joke. This is the truth. They have fully opened my third eye. And of course, having Maze as the producer, chef's kiss, guy's fabulous. So that is my number 5 podcast there. Podcast number 4, Mystery Crate. Love me a good Mystery Crate. This shipping container, ripping it, letting it rip, riffing and a ripping, and tell you what, folks, I even enjoy it when Amin and Maze are talking their Star Wars, I watch the Star Wars shows, and I'm in no means a Star Wars expert, but I do enjoy that universe, and I still enjoy Mystery Crate when those guys are cutting it up, talking about the show and hearing what they have to say. But I do love a good Mystery Crate where you just don't know what you're going to get, but you're going to get the shipping container bouncing around all over the place. So that is my number 4 podcast here. Podcast number 3, Cinephobe. That's right. Number 3, Amin, Zach, the honest podcaster, and Maze, trying to ascertain poorly rated movies, trying to see, did they get a fair shake? Or are they properly rated? I was resistant to this podcast at first, if I'm honest, because they plugged it so much on the Le Batard show. And I was like, oh man, I don't know. And what finally got me was the first time they had Mike Ryan as a guest. Because, if Mike Ryan's going on a podcast, I'm listening to it. I super follow him 3 times. That's right. Update 3 times now. 3 times, people. So I just love it. The joke, like it is now, like the jokes, they just keep coming. It's nonstop, and they are a well-oiled machine. I look forward to it every week, and the episodes do not disappoint. Podcast number 2, the Dan Le Batard Show with Stu Gotts. Number 2, people. Of course, you knew it was coming, right? Number 2. I told you it was no longer number 1, but it's still, like, as I said, it's still the podcast where I get the most joy from it because it's still putting out the most content, right? But it has fallen in the rankings to a podcast where every time these guys are dropping bangers. I was introduced to this podcast last year through them, and I actually resisted again listening to this because it wasn't a part of Meadowlark, but this year now everything is a part of Meadowlark, and that is the Shutdown Fullcast, folks, including the Shutdown Fullcast After Dark. Right? They are my new number 1 because they just cover college football in such a hilarious way, and they told by far what has been the funniest story that still I have heard from 2022 of dad disasters, of the 2 dads trying to handle a rattlesnake. If you have not heard their dad disasters episode, do yourself a favor, go listen to it. But I do just want to talk about their most recent Shutdown Fullcast After Dark. I love when I'm able to catch it live in a Twitter space. It's just so funny. I love the way that they break down college football because it's exactly what I love about college football, which I think is back when I had the time to really consume all the sports I wanted. College football was my number 1 sport. Now I still love it. Try to watch it a little bit, but I only have the time to watch like 1 game maybe with the 2 kids, but you can tell that everyone involved, like they know their stuff, and the way they talk about it, they talk about the things that I love about college football. Like in their last episode, they started off by talking about the kicker's name for Mississippi State, Massimo Biscardi, right? Great name. They were riffing on it, making it sound, doing these Italian accents. The title of the episode, Southern Baptist Theological Seminary Dr. Doom. And that is them referring to what Georgia fans are like. So these guys, when they make analogies, when they talk about it, they're very creative. And, talking about how Georgia fans have shifted from this fan base that before was always fearful they were going to choke it up to lose, to now, they're like, how dare you think you can beat us? And, then they started riffing on like how they're like Dr. Doom. And then no, like Southern Baptist, they're like, oh, just very funny accents and whatnot. And then they had a hilarious segment of protection of the punter, of how Missouri lost to Kentucky, just discussing in hilarious ways. And so I just realized that podcast right now, it's currently my favorite. It's my number 1. And props to Meadowlark for securing them, locking them down, and introducing me to the Shutdown Fullcast that consistently discusses college football in hilarious ways, but also they do give you the goods on college football. Oh, it's good stuff. So go ahead, listen, and keep on listening. Coming up next, we've got Hurricane Talk. This is your Sports Center update brought to you by the Fan Le Batard Show podcast, the fastest growing Dan Le Batard fan YouTube channel. Subscribe, rate, review, like, comment, do all that jazz. This past weekend, Missouri lost to Kentucky. When on fourth down, the long snapper for Kentucky, snapping from the 41-yard line, sailed the snap over the head of the punter, Colin Goodfellow. Goodfellow managed to retrieve the ball back at the 4-yard line and turn back upfield and punted the ball just as he was tackled by Missouri linebacker Will Norris. A flag came out, and after a discussion, the refs decided that Goodfellow had remained in the tackle box and retained the protection of the punter. Roughing the punter was called. Kentucky got the first down and ran off enough time to seal the victory. And finally, most toilet paper in the homes in France is pink. Did not know that. Interesting fact. I don't know if I want to picture that. But you go ahead. I wonder what color toilet paper Mike is going to eat. Word on the street is he's going to eat it. So we'll find that out. But speaking of Golden Cane, Mike Ryan, his Miami Hurricanes aren't looking so golden. 45-3 loss to Florida State. Just getting shellacked. You got TVD out there. Did not look good at all. Playing hurt. HBK, he comes in. There was a moment in the game where you thought Miami might make this respectable. That first drive of the second half, HBK is bringing it down, and then it was a fumble, I think, a bad snap. HBK wasn't ready for it. Ends the drive, ends any chance at getting back into the game, and the blowout continues. And the embarrassing season for the Canes and Mike Ryan continues. And for me as a fan, having listened to the Le Batard Show, I'm the type of person where if there's something that I listen and enjoy, I start to like the same things of those people. So having listened to the Le Batard Show for, going on near a decade now, I've become a fan of the same teams too. So I root for Miami, and I wish they were having a better season. They haven't become my favorite team. I've still retained those. I'm not someone to abandon my own teams. So tighten up. That's right. Derrick Henry. I don't know about keep your eyes on Malik Willis, Tony. I'm not convinced. If we had Tannehill, we win that game for sure. But back to Miami. It just makes you wonder, what's it going to take for the U to come back? After the Duke loss, I actually, Mike, who I super follow 3 times. That's right, 3 times, because what he does with his content it's worth it, folks. So what he did after the Duke loss is he had a Twitter space. Got to tell him of how I support Miami in that Twitter space, and that I would consider donating. I think that's what it might have to take. Fans of the show, will you support the Miami Hurricanes? Will you step up? Could you become a Golden Hurricane? I would consider it. I think it would be a fun idea for this podcast to call and see what it takes to be a Golden Cane. I don't think they let us record that podcast, but maybe we could create some sort of content around trying to do that. But I have considered supporting Miami just to say, hey, keep your head up, keep your chin up, Mike. Don't give in to the darkness that has been this apocalyptic season for Miami. And, just speaking of college football, again, another idea that I've had is to spoof the Shutdown Fullcast and do a podcast called The Open Up Empty Catch. See what I did there? It's the opposite. Shut down, open up, full cast, empty catch. A podcast that would be about the bottom of the, the FCS, the division below the NCAA, about the worst teams. The tagline would be, because we know more about space than we do the bottom of the Patriot League. I think that's one of the leagues. That could be the tagline for the podcast, and could riff on the logo of the Shutdown Fullcast, which is a snake coming out of a astronaut spacesuit. Could riff on that logo by having a deep sea diver with an eel coming out of it. Creative idea, but I was doing some research for that. I think it was Lane College, the Dragons. Their coach after a game said we only played like 45 minutes of good football. And that got me thinking, they still got the win, but what football team out there, like what's the least amount of good minutes that a football team could play and still win the game? Like Ohio State versus Northwestern, like how many good minutes of football did they have? Like the weather messed everything up, but Ohio State, they maybe needed like 7-10 minutes of good football to beat Northwestern 21-7, right? I don't know. Like maybe they had 15 minutes of good football in there, maybe a quarter. Probably not. I don't think they had a quarter of good football in that game, right? So kind of impressive when you think of it that way, right? But then I started thinking, I'm thinking about this all wrong. There's a team out there that's designed to not want the good football minutes. And that's Iowa. Kirk Ferentz is out there talking to his boys. Hey, you only got to give me 8 minutes of good football. That's all I want. The rest just punt. We'll play defense. We'll make it ugly. And we'll win or we'll lose, but we'll lose close. And it'll be ugly and it'll be boring. People will hate it, but we'll win. That's Iowa football. Iowa football is designed to give you the most crappy minutes possible. And then they'll sneak in a few good minutes here with, Spencer Petras dropping his few occasional, 12-yard passes. Don't get too crazy there, Spence. Huh? What's the end game there, buddy? Huh? So it's Iowa football that's definitely designed to win football games with the least amount of good minutes out there, in my opinion. So speaking of good things coming your way, coming up next, your boy is going to break down his daily fantasy week because I have had myself a week coming up next. Welcome back to the Fan Le Batard Show podcast, the fastest growing Dan Le Batard fan YouTube channel. That's right. And this SportsCenter update is brought to you by us. Curtis Rourke, a.k.a. the Maple Missile, passed for 362 yards and 3 TDs in Ohio's 37-21 shellacking of Miami, Ohio. Edmonton forward Evander Kane was cut on the left wrist by a skate blade Tuesday night and taken to the hospital with a frightening injury during the Oilers' 3-2 win over the Tampa Bay Lightning. Just reminding you that they play that game on swords. And finally, the shape of a Pringles is called, hyperbolic paraboloid. You know what I call the shape of their can? Too small. You got to open that can up. It's too small for me to reach my hand in Pringles. I'm not going to keep doing it just to get your uniquely shaped chip. Open it up. Get that fixed. Again, those are brought to you by the Fan Le Batard Show podcast. Subscribe, review, do what you need. Get us up 5 stars. Subscribe, like, comment on the YouTubes. Alrighty, folks. Welcome back. I have really enjoyed the show coming to DraftKings and the freedom it's provided it. We wouldn't have something like freedom without DraftKings. We wouldn't have the musical without the freedom of DraftKings. And because of that, I support DraftKings. I did not do daily fantasy. I wasn't much of a fantasy player. I still really am not much of a fantasy player, but when the Le Batard Show joined that and they started doing their weekly contests, I joined DraftKings, bit the bullet, started doing the contest last year, and got to tell you, it's a lot of fun. I enjoyed it a lot last year. I actually started listening to some podcasts, probably dove way too deep into it, but it ended up being very nice for me financially. I ended up being plus 800 last year in daily fantasy because I hit on that week that Joe Burrow went off with Higgins and Chase against the Ravens. That won me a big payday. And on the Super Bowl, I actually had the winning lineup of a $100,000 contest. Unfortunately, so did 162 other people. So it all came out to, I think, like $650 after that. So, but hey, with that, consider myself this show's daily fantasy expert, but I have not gotten that deep this season. I have to admit, last season, your boy, what I was doing, I was playing the dime games. I was creating 20 lineups of the dimes, $2 total. And then I graduated from there to the $3 lineups, creating 20 of those, doing $60 a week there. And then I threw in a couple, I do that. And then I throw in a couple 20 as my winnings went up. As I won more, I was able to play more. This season, I've only just been doing the Le Batard League and maybe like a few things here or there. Last year, I dabbled in college football. I dabbled in basketball. But the thing is, if you want to do well, you have to take the time and you have to do your research to find those diamonds in the rough, because that's what separates you in daily fantasy. But I've had a successful past couple weeks. 3 weeks ago, I was 18th in the league, got myself a $15 payday. Wow. And I was 14th. At one point I was first, but I ended up being 14th this week, bringing down $25 this week. So I am up for the season. Of course, overall, I put in 20 and I've just been playing with that, and I'm up 10, got it. $10. I'd be up even more, but Mike Ryan quickly tweeted out a hockey thing for $10. And I was like, oh, I got to do it, right? It's Mike, right? So I did it. And of course, I don't know anything about hockey and I lost $10. That's what happens. I win and then I make rash decisions like that. And then I got to play smart and get my winnings. But I played very smart this past weekend. Here is my lineup for you folks. Your boy was rocking Tua at the quarterback. I had the Waddle and Hill double stack. That's something that sets you apart. When you hit on a double stack, it drives you up the list, because a lot of people do not double stack. Now, that does mean some weeks you may need to prepare yourself for losing, right? But if you are going to play daily fantasy and take it seriously, you should be putting in actually tons and tons of lineups to give you more opportunity. Because if you hit on one of those and you climb up the charts, one big hit can return the entry fee from not just one other, but several other, if you climb all the way up there. So doing things like a double stack, ubbling up, as I like to say, ubbling. So I had that Dolphins double stack, and then you bring it back with someone in the game, right? I targeted the Dolphins Bears game because the Dolphins have been scoring tons of points, and their defense, it's been shaky. In Chicago just allowed a ton of points the week before, but also was starting to put some things together offensively. Now, if I'm kicking myself, because if I was actually dialed in like I was dialed in last season, I would have been on the Justin Fields. That's another thing. The difference of scores in quarterbacks is not very big. Your quarterback, usually you can take a risk. And Fields, man, I really wish I would have I filled this one out last, literally 7 a.m., woke up and was like, oh shoot, I got to fill out my lineup. 7 a.m., filled it out and just knew that was the game I wanted to target. Didn't really think about it. If I did Fields, I would have been first place easily. So kicking myself about that, but what can you do? Still winning money. But I had the bring back of Komet, which that player was 0.58% owned. That's exactly what you want to get if you want to get up into that upper echelon of 14 out of 900 people. You're only going to get there if you find the people that aren't owned, because then you're getting points that nobody else is getting. You got to get those diamonds in the rough. And he was the 11th highest scoring player. I had him because I knew he had tons of receptions last year, because I was on him some last season. And I know he's had a down season this year, but the Dolphins don't play well against tight ends. Again, their defense has been shaky. Fields has been coming up, and I got lucky. He got 2 tutties and I got 22 points. That 0.058, like you do the math on that. That's like 5 people. Me and 4 other people had him in our lineups, and we got the 11th highest player. Me and 4 other people got that, and nobody else did. That's how I got, if I had someone else in there that was more owned, I'm not climbing up to the 14th spot. Oh, let's see. Who else did I had Etienne. He was a highly owned player, but cheap and good matchup. I had Patterson again, good matchup coming back. And I picked Patterson because I thought people would be off him because he was coming back and he was lower owned, 10%. That's not bad. A 10% owned player. And let's see here. Where's the rest of my lineup? And then here's I hit on finding another one that was low owned, but he did not come through. And that was Denzel Mims of the Jets. If you look, their starting wide receiver, I think, I can't remember his name. Corey was out. And that's who, I'm totally blanking. That's who the Jets quarterback who needs to remember his name? Zach Wilson. There we go. Got it. He's not going to amount to anything. Jets need to move on. I've been saying that. But anyway, there's enough tape out on him. Not good enough. But I got him because Corey Davis was out. Denzel Mims was going to get playing time and he was cheap. 3,100. Kmet, 3,000, right? You have to find those players that are rare. And he was even less owned. Only 4 people in the whole entire thing had him, but he only came up with 2.0 points. But if you think about it, if I take Kmet's and Mims for 6,100, I got 24 points between those 2 players, which allowed me to spend and get the Tua Waddle stack, which people also don't do because it's expensive, right? And because it was cheap, that also allowed me to spend a little bit more on my defense, which it isn't. Defense is sometimes another thing like the quarterback where you can actually get away with spending something cheap and it might not hurt you. Or, maybe you spend cheap and you get lucky, right? Like the Jets, if a lot of people were off the Jets, they were cheap. If you spent on the Jets, they actually scored very well and would have helped move you up. I put the Patriots in 26 points. Yeah. Got lucky again there, but also Bill Belichick against the new Sam Erlinger, however you say his name. That was easy money in the bank. I was like, when is this pick 6 going to come? When is it going to come? And sure enough, it came and just sacks galore. 26 points for your boy. And then I had a little Jordan Palmer because everybody in the Chargers is out hurt. Guy was cheap. You knew he was going to be the only viable wide receiver target for Justin Herbert. But also, again, highly owned. But it's okay. It's okay to have those highly owned players if you get the other things that differentiate you, like a double stack or like getting Kmet. Honestly, I don't know why more people weren't on Kmet other than the Batard Show League does tend to be a little bit easier than if you play the full-on contests. Because, again, you get people like me who came in without they're just playing it for fun, right? And if you look at some of the people's lineups, they're not doing the things like, right? So again, if you do those things, some weeks, right? If you're off, you're really off. You're not going to cash, right? But when you hit, you really hit. And so it makes up for the weeks that you're off. I think out of all the seasons, I've maybe only cashed 3 times, but I'm positive because when I do cash, I really cash, right? I'm finishing near the top 10. So it may seem like something like, why are you playing both of, obviously though, if you can find a way to get Waddle and Hill in your lineup, why not? Those guys have been money like all season, and Tua has been great as well too. Now going forward, you probably won't be able to do that, but that is a little bit of my secret sauce for winning, folks. And speaking of some secret sauce, we've got ourselves a secret guest coming up on the show. The show often talks about trying to stay young. Well, we've got a young guest coming up who's going to help the show stay young. Stay tuned.
Don't wanna grow another day.
Hello and welcome back to the Fan Lebitard Show podcast, the fastest growing Dan Lebitard fan YouTube channel. That's right, growing it. In a press conference on Wednesday, Aaron Rodgers said he was thankful for his journey with former coach Mike McCarthy. Journey to where? Not winning more than one Super Bowl? Guy's washed. Not even thinking straight anymore. Sad. Russell Wilson responded to questions about his unwillingness to wear a wristband while in Seattle by saying, "We won a lot of games there without one on my wrist." Wilson wore a wristband in the Broncos' 21-17 win over the Jaguars. Broncos Nation, let's wrist up and ride. And finally, mellifluous is a sound that is pleasingly smooth and musical to hear. How about that? All right, folks, welcome back. You know, from time to time, you hear the Dan Lebitard Show, especially Dan, talk about the need for the show to stay young, right? That's why they have the shipping container. That's probably one of the reasons why they hired Smetty, right? She's less than 30. But you know, she's out here now. She's drinking port tonics. She's going to bed before 10, right? I mean, she's no longer a spring chicken, folks. And I think it's time that the show got younger. So I have a special guest who is here to help the show stay young and bring in the perspective of the next generation. And without further ado, I'm going to bring him on now. Oh, James. Are you ready to be on Daddy's podcast? Okay, come sit here. I'm going to ask you some questions, buddy. Okay, so let Daddy ask you some questions. How are you today?
I like giggers. I'm giggers.
Oh, okay. Yeah, good answer. How do you feel about the election results? Was there a red wave?
No.
Yes, no red tidal wave, right? Good job, son. Yeah, how do you feel about the recent selections for the US men's national team? Do you feel good about them?
I'm good about them, but no.
No, you don't. Do you think like they should have gotten what? Puppy
Bird.
Yeah, I definitely think he should have been on there. How far do you see?
By the way.
You're as the guest, son. Daddy needs to ask his question.
No, you can't.
How far do you see them go?
No, you get it.
Now, don't yell into the microphone. How far do you see the U.S. team going in the World Cup? How far do you see them going in the World Cup? Wow. Okay, here's another question. Okay, I need you to answer the question. Okay, no yelling. Can you answer this question?
Oh.
Do you want the Dan? James? Do you want the Dan?
Oh, I'm giggers. Oh, yeah.
So.
Abby.
So do you feel like Dan is in touch with his fans? This younger generation? Interesting thought. Okay. Yes or no, James?
Yes.
Hold on, I haven't asked the question. Do you find Dan relatable?
Dan.
Yes, Dan. Do you find Dan Lebitard relatable?
Dan relatable.
Can you relate to him as a younger generation?
No.
No, you can't? Do you think he can relate to you?
Only you could.
Only I can? Hey, don't grab
what do you want to do? Assemble. A gaggle.
Here's another question, James. Yes or no? Is highlight the next American pastime?
No.
No, it's not. Where hold on, another question. Where would you rank
No.
where would you rank the Cesta Cyclones in the pantheon of great
No.
teams? Great team,
No.
greatest team, or
No.
no? Oh, okay.
No.
Well, James, thank you for coming on and sharing your perspective. This is the next generation. They're coming for all your stuff. They understand how streaming works. They understand how to have multiple screens, and they're coming for all your stuff. James, are you coming for everyone's stuff?
Yeah.
Are you sad about the Tom Brady divorce?
Yeah.
Do you think he should have retired last season?
Yeah.
There you have it, folks. The younger generation has spoken. Thanks, James. Alrighty, folks. We are back with the Van Levitard Show with another Sports Center update for you. The Brooklyn Nets have hired Jacques Vaughn as their new head coach. The promotion comes with a deal through the 2023-2024 season, sources told ESPN's Adrian Wojnarowski. Bills quarterback Josh Allen is day-to-day with a right elbow injury to the ulnar collateral ligament and related nerves. His status for Sunday against the Vikings is uncertain. And finally, Mexico's presidential palace is 14 times larger than the White House and started allowing visitors for the first time in 2018. Well, folks, thanks for coming along on this journey with me as I fly solo here on the Fan Levitard Show, the fastest growing Dan Levitard fan YouTube channel. Go ahead, subscribe, comment, all that stuff. I hope you had a fun time diving into fantasy, talking shutdown fullcast, top 5 podcasts, all that stuff. And I'd like to close out this episode with a special announcement letting everyone know that I will be attending Moss Miami, folks. I'm excited. Yes, I have a lovely wife who has allowed me to travel to Miami, going on a holiday. Don't know if I'm bringing any friends, but maybe I'll make some friends there, you know? So I'm excited to be going to Moss Miami. This is my first Moss event. I did go to a High Live event. That would be my first in-person Levitard event, and that was really great. And I'm guessing this will be even better since it is 4 to midnight. I'm thinking about getting those VIP tickets. I don't know. We'll see. But I'm very excited about going to Moss Miami. It's going to be a whirlwind trip for me, taking a red eye, folks. Amin style Friday, landing Saturday morning, getting there, hanging out. I don't know, doing who knows what for the morning, finding something to do until 4 o'clock. Maybe hitting up some Apple stores and reviewing Cinephobe. Hashtag the journey to 20,000 begins. But I'll be at Moss Miami. Maybe comment, are you going, huh? Anybody need to share a hotel? I booked mine, got my hotel booked. Just got to get my rental car and whatnot. So I'm looking forward to Moss Miami, seeing and meeting some of the people from the show again, and excited for that. So thank you everybody for coming along with me on this journey, and maybe I'll see you at Moss Miami. All right, goodbye.